Hello and welcome to another edition of the Star Trek Legacy Mission Scripting Screencast Series. I am your host, Chris Chessmess Kerner, and today we are going to cover the basic mission template. Well, what I'm going to do is, based on some requests I've had in the forums at stgu.com, I'm going to create a simple bare bones mission. It won't have any cinematics. It's basically going to put a player with command of a single ship against another ship controlled by the AI. If you want to create a scenario, you could say you're Captain Kirk and you're going to go against the Mirror Universe Captain Kirk. And that's the goal for this screencast. So let's dig right in. The first thing I'm going to do is you have your editor. I'm using NetBeans in this case. You can use Visual Studio, doesn't matter. You can use the text editor. I'm not going to worry about compiling and all that. This is really just going to be just what you need to put in the actual source code to create your mission. And so every mission consists of two files, the SCP file and the RUL file, the script and the rule file. And when you create a map, you define the script file that's run via the map property. So I'm going to, right here I have the second mission of the game, the single player campaign called Breakwater that I worked on. I created actually. And I'm going to create some new files here. So the first thing we want to do is create a new file. We're going to call this, let's see, mirror SCP. This is going to be our script file, and then we're going to create a second file called mirror RUL, and that will be our rule file. As you know from our previous screencast, the script file contains the actual code that runs and makes things happen. The rule file is like fires the functions in the script file based on events. So very first thing we want to do in our script file is I have a tendency, I like to have informative commenting. So I'm going to take, and I am basically, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go all the way down to after initialization. We need everything down to initialization. And I'll show you what that consists of in a second here. So I'm going to copy this into my new script file. We're going to call in a mirror darkly, even though we're not going to recreate the exact circumstances of that. Very good episode from Enterprise. And we'll just clean all this out here. These are just comments, so you don't have to have them. I tend to like to have nice clean source. And I'm going to leave the function list in there if you want. I like to put these into the headers for easy searching. Alright, so the very first part of any script file you have to have is this context. Now there are things you can put in the context, but none of them you're going to be doing in Legacy. So you have to have it. As far as I know, you have to have it. I've never tried it without. It may work, it may not. Chances are, why take chance it works with it? So just leave it in there. The next section we got to have is called the definitions section. This contains all your global variables. So when a mission begins, when the game engine loads up a mission, it automatically, as soon as it loads it up, it starts firing off the rules. So what you have to do is you have to set it up in stages, and usually in a single player mission you're going to have cinematics play, and then you're going to turn control over to the game, to the player. And what we do is we usually say we need to begin mission, and mission began, and then mission end. So we break it into phases. And if you're sitting down and you're thinking, how do I turn this idea I have into a mission? the best way to do it is try to break that into phases. You break it into like if I were going to take logical conclusions, which is the final mission of the game, as an example, one phase you're trying to get the turrets from into position amongst the all the ambient fighting of the Borg ships, and you're trying to place it at the top and bottom of that string. That would be a phase. When you put them in there, you would move into another phase, and that would be with the countdown phase. Now, if the Borg blew up one of the turrets, it would drop back to the prior phase where you'd have to again put the things. If it went off, then you'd go into another phase. So kind of in your mind, break it apart into phases. That'll help you kind of lay out the event flow of the mission. So in a typical mission, you have the cinematic phase at the beginning, and you start the mission. Then those are like two individual phases. Then you have whatever phases you want to make in your mission, and then you have an end phase, which usually also has an end cinematic. We're not going to have any of that, so we're going to jump as soon as the map is loaded. We're going to jump right into creating, or right into the player playing the game, playing the mission. So what I need to do is, there's some variables we're going to keep here. We're going to call mission success and mission failure. These are very basic to say if the player, in our logic of in a Mirror Darkly here, we say if the player beats the Mirror Universe Kirk, he wins. If he is destroyed by the Mirror Universe Kirk, he fails. Very simple, but you have to have these variables, to these flags, to basically set in the rule file. And we're going to say we need to begin mission, opening center active done. We don't need that. We're not going to do any cinematics. Mission end phase. Let me clean all this out. Attack, center active 1, fleet. We don't need any of those. That's begun. And we'll take all these out. I'm going to take that out. Okay, so we have our basic mission flag. They win, they fail. We need to start the mission. The mission has begun, and then the mission is ended. So our next step is, let's see, cinematic. This is for cinematics. We don't need it. In this mission, we don't need this or any of these. We're not going to play any VO because we're not having any cinematics. And I'll do a tutorial, a screencast on doing cinematics. Okay. Don't think we're going to use any counters at this point. We are going to use some handles. Handles are references to objects on maps. You can create an object on the map, grab its handle, or it can be an existing object. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a handle in for ship. We got one right below here for ship Enterprise. We are going to leave this one for ship Mirror Enterprise. Okay. So we're going to go back over here. We're going to remove all of this. Now I like to, when you create code and you say you put players on teams and whatnot, you can actually, the function calls will accept integer values. I like to use variables in place because it makes the code more readable. It's a lot easier to read a piece of code that says set team and gives a variable reference, which is a descriptive variable. In this case, we have like player team. It's a little easier to read than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not so bad when you only have 2 teams, because players are always team 1, enemies are always team 2, and then map objects are team 0, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are teams that you can use for other objects or other things. But by default, players are always team 1 and enemies are always team 2. You can actually change that around. you can change the enemy team. You can add, you can make team 3 a allied team who helps you, or you can make it an enemy team. And you've seen, if you looked at any of the code I've done on logical conclusion, you can see how I use multiple teams. Most of my code I use multiple teams here. In this one, I do that. I have Terrell on our own team. The reason I put ships on their own teams is sometimes I need to cycle through to check things, and if I need to cycle and check objects that have multiple objects, it's easier to put them all on one team and cycle through the team than it is to create a whole bunch of variables or handle references to all those individual objects and then type the code that checks all those objects. Okay, so we're going to get rid of all those. Some handles for some titles. We'll leave the title code in there. I think you like to have the I'll leave the title code in there for this example, just so that you can when it brings it up, you'll see the nice title and stuff like that. You don't have to have it for the mission. You can pop them right in the mission. Nothing shows on the screen, but we'll leave the handles for titles, and I'll show you how to put the titles in there. Okay, we're not going to do any audio. We're not going to do any timers for this. This is a very basic mission. None of these. And that. So, okay, so this is the gist of our definition section. All these are global variables. We have our mission flags, and we will jump over here and add more to these as we go into it, and need to do that. Okay, so after your definition section, your next section is the initialization section. So basically, the definitions, you define the variables. Initialization, you set them, and both of these have to be in the mission template. So here I'm setting the teams. Now I don't have to well, actually I do, because I'm using this. Never mind. So forget that. Of course I didn't say anything, so easy to forget. Alright, so we got our two team variable references here. We are going to use this code, ship mirror enterprise. Now I have two ways of doing this. I can either make the presumption that the ships in question are already placed on the map, or that we spawn them dynamically when the mission starts. I'm going to make it so that I am making an assumption that the map has these two ships on it. The mirror ship and the enterprise player ship. This function getCraft from team list basically pulls the from this team the first location. Now you can see where I could have put in player team right there. Now if you have a question about what, where these functions are being called, or what they should take, you can look at one of the files here. Let's see which one. No, okay, this is my fine. Okay. The script interface file has all the functions that are available to you to use. So if I was to go into here, and what was our function? Our function was getCraft from team list. You can do a Control F and search for it. I'm not going to do it that way because I'm using NetBeans, and it has a nice little drop down here, and I can go right to where I want. getCraft from team list. And you see, let's get camera. Well, I don't see it. Or if this is ordered. Well, let's do it this way. Get craft from, there we go. I'm not sure why it wasn't pulling that from the list, but anyway, here it is. So here's the function. Get craft from team list. It expects an integer team number and then the slot. When team lists, they can, as however many craft you have on that team, you can pull from any slot. It's 0 based, so your first craft will always be at position 0. Alright, so let's go back here. So we're going to grab from the player team the very first spot. Now, for this to work, for this to be true, the map maker, which is generally the mission developer or maybe somebody else, has to put a ship on the map, has to set that to team 1, and has to give it a handle. Well, I take that back. It doesn't have to give it a handle, because in this case I'm using get craft from team list. Now I'm going to show you a different call, which is the next call, and I'll say, but they basically just have to have a ship on the map, and it's going to be the first ship they place on the map. Now if there's 5 ships on team 1, whatever the first ship they placed that was on team 1 is going to be the one that gets pulled into this. So you don't want to put multiple ships and make, if you're going to put multiple ships on a team and use this call, you got to know which ship goes into which slot. And it's basically in the order that they're placed on the map. Okay, so our next call, where we're going to get a handle to the mirror enterprise, we're going to use a call called get handle. Let's see if this, if I have my get handle works. There we are. Get handle. It accepts a name, an object name, and in. So basically that is going to be, if we look over here, just a string. So name is a string. It's going to, in this call, get handle will look on the map for an object that has a handle of the name ship Terrell. Now we're gonna say mirror enterprise. So we had to make sure that the map has mirror enterprise ship on it in order for this to work. If you don't have it, it won't error out, but it won't have anything in here. It'll be like a null object, and that's going to cause problems in our rule processing when we say, okay, is that object alive or not? It won't evaluate right. We'll get funky things happening. Okay. Now we didn't use any audio, so we can strip all that out. And here we have we're setting our flags. Whenever you define flags, you have to make sure you remember to set their values in the initialization section, because they are unknown quantities when the game engine starts. If you don't set it, who knows what it'll be. It could be anything. So you got to set it to a defined value, and this is what we're doing. So we're saying mission success. We're basically using these as Boolean flags, so 0s and 1s. We don't need begin countdown. Fleet is alive, which we don't really need, because we're only going to put one ship on the map. We're not going to check for all the ships. Okay, so mission begun, mission in, failure, and success. Now we're going to come back here. Don't need any of this, don't need any of this. Attack way, no, this is all for center actives. VO, music, we don't need those because we're not using any of that. None of that, and none of that. lost my spot there. Let's go back. All right, now what we want to do is to set our mission flags. It says we need to begin mission. Now I need to look up here because did we set we need is this one of our is we need to begin mission and actual, did we define that? Okay, we did. So there it is right here. Okay, and we're setting this to yes. We need to, well, the reason it's set to 0 is because usually you say 0, you need to begin mission, and you're going to start a Synteractive. So here we're saying Synteractive 1 needs to be played, and that would start the whole Synteractive series. We're not doing it. We can get rid of it. And we can go right. We can get rid of this too. We can say we need to begin mission 1, and that will fire our first rule, which will start the mission. Okay, now right now all we have is the 2 sections. The next thing we need to is to have in our rules. Let's take a look at the rules. Okay, we need to begin mission. We know we're going to use that. Let's copy that and let's go over to our rule file and let's find that in this mission. Okay, start game rule. So this is going to start the mission. This will call a function, start mission, when this goes true. Now we have always evaluate because we're doing some, these are some engine provided, this right here is an engine provided variable. This is a timer, so we're going to clean this up. We're just going to say we need to begin mission. Okay, so when the game starts, oh, I'm actually in the wrong file, aren't I? Let's copy this out, copy it, and we're going to put it in our rule file. So here's our mission in our rule file. Now I'm going to go down a little bit, and I'm going to take the top header from a rule file. Because again, I think good documentation, good commenting is what you need. And this also, if I can get this selected right, this also has, you see the context, we have to have that in our file as well. So let's go to the top. We're going to Control V that in. Okay. So we have the description here and all this, and I'm just going to darkly. Okay, and we're going to clean this up here because we can fill that in later. Okay, rules for the world, that has to be in there. That defines this function of this file kind of to the engine. The context, it's saying what script is that associated to. And right now we see that it's to the wrong script. So what we have to do is we have to change this to mirror s. So that'll associate it with this script, the mirror script. I don't think it matters if it's wrong keys. If it's uppercase or lowercase, just for consistency's sake. Okay, so we've changed our start game rule. It's set to go when this is true. In our initialization section, it's set to true. So the first thing that's going to happen right now is this will hit and it will call start mission. So let's run over and let's grab start mission from the script file. Okay. So our first item here, our first function, action. I tend to call them functions. You can call them method, functions, actions, doesn't matter. I think I'm switching around too between casts. Well, that's what happens when you're trying to rush do everything. Okay. So we're going to paste this script in, our start mission. Alright, we have to have the action and the name, and it always has script world at the beginning, and then at the end of it, it always has end script and end action. Okay. So there isn't much we need to do here. Let's take a bunch of this stuff out. We don't have cinematics again, so we can strip all this out. Don't have tutorials. Okay, right here, we need to begin mission. The very first thing this thing does is sets it to 0. Why? Because if it was not set to 0, then the next time the rule file got evaluated, well, actually, because we're not using always evaluate here, it should only fire once. But if we had, let's just say, we had some other conditions. Normally in Cineractives you have to constantly check for when it's in, so you'll probably have this always evaluate. Okay, so it's always going to check this rule, but it's only going to fire the rule if this is true. Now, the first time through, it calls start mission and does everything. When it comes back around to do the rule file again, if this was still true, if we need to start mission was still true, it would again call start mission and basically get yourself into loop. So one of the things you're going to get used to doing is setting flags to false when you jump into a function. In fact, it is probably almost always the case you're going to set some flag to prevent looping. Alright, so this will prevent it. Now mission begin is 1. It's setting this to say the mission has started. And the reason, why do we have a mission begin? Okay, because we're going to have, and you'll see this in a little bit, we're going to have other rules that are going to check like the condition of our ship and the condition of the enemy ship. Those are the success and fail rules. If we didn't have something to define the phase to say we're in the mission, it's okay to check these, and all we did was check for the existence of those ships, live or die, it's going to do that as soon as the mission started, which if we're in cinematics, we don't want that to happen. This is why we have this mission begun phase. We say, okay, that's a phase, and this mission begun 1 will put us in the phase. Now, in the rule for like saying, is our ship alive, we'll also include and mission has begun. So that way we can make sure that the checks only happen when we want them to happen, during the phases they need to happen. You don't want to check to see if the enemy ship has been destroyed if you're in a cinematic at the start of the mission, because you haven't put the ship there. Let's say you spawn the ship after the mission starts, you spawn it. Well, the first thing you do is you're in a cinematic and you haven't created that ship. The engine, if the rule doesn't have something in it to check to say that you're in that start of the mission, it's going to trigger because that ship's not there. It considers it destroyed, and you're going to cause problems. So that's why we have mission begun and need to begin mission. It kind of breaks it into phases. Alright, turn on all damage. That's a function if in cinematics we turn the damage off. We can turn it on and off globally. You're already thinking, oh, what if, well, I don't know. You probably have lots of ideas for different things you can do. Alright, make the station. Oh, we're going to get rid of this. This is just a comment block here. We don't need it. And so on and so forth. Now, we're actually not really doing anything in particular here. We're gonna, this is my little music player I built. Set special forces. That's more with the cinematic stuff, and I'll tell you about that. Alright, here's our title. You know, we're not going to do the titles. The reason normally the titles are shown during the cinematic phase, since we're not having that in the beginning of the mission, I'm going to take it out. But when we do our first cinematic screencast, I'll go over that. Reset hero ship health. We don't have to do any of this stuff. We can set objectives. We're just going to go so bare bones here that it's basically no objectives or any of that stuff. Okay, and I'm gonna leave that in there. Okay. Oh, it jumped on me, didn't it? Keeps confusing me when it jumps up the editor like that. Okay, don't need that. Don't need any audio. I'm not going to worry about anything else. We can add maybe some audio. Okay, I can already see this is taking way too long. I'm going to have to break this up.